Okay, last week we were dealing with Jesus healing a man with palsy. We looked at Matthew 9, verses 2 through 8, Mark 2, verses 1 through 12, and Luke 5, verses 17 through 26. And I do believe we finished that up last week, so we get to move on to the next subject matter there. And if you'll notice, if you have one of the outlines in front of you, that the next thing on our list is Jesus called Matthew. And I'm not talking about on the telephone either. So we'll see that from God's Word here in a few moments. I'll get some readers. For those of you who are just starting the class with us, we're harmonizing the gospel accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And we are currently looking at, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, we're going to be looking at the call of Matthew from Jesus or by Jesus. So I need 3 readers for me. Randall, if you'll take Matthew 19:9. Anyone else? Shelley, if you'll take Mark 2, 1 through 12. And one more. All right, Cindy, if you'll take Luke chapter 5, verses 27 through 28. So let's start off at Matthew. One verse, Matthew chapter 9, verse 9.
As Jesus passed forth from thence, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the receipt of custom. He said unto him, Follow me. And he arose and followed him.
Okay. We've already had some people listed already who had been out there following around with Jesus and things of that nature, and some of them were already hearing his word. But this is the account of Matthew being called. It tells us there that he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the receipt of custom. Now, you may not be as familiar with that terminology as you will some of the others, but those of you who already know, what was the trade or what was the work that Matthew did? He was a tax collector, that's right. Or as they called them, a publican. That was what they were known as back then, as a publican, a tax collector. And just to be very blunt with you, they were not always given the best reputation. And I don't mean that because people didn't like paying their taxes. I'm sure a lot of folks don't like paying taxes. I'm one of them sometimes. I don't like paying certain ones of them either. But anyway, the idea back then, the reason some of them were not well liked is because some of them would actually take advantage of their position, from what I understand, and that they would take more than they should from some people and kind of line their pockets with it. So you can imagine if that was happening, that would not make you the most favorable person in the world. So Matthew would be a situation where a lot of folks might have looked at him and thought, here's a tax collector, here's a crook, here's an individual who just takes our money. What good is he going to do? But our Lord sees more than that, doesn't he? I'm not going to accuse Matthew of being one of them that did that very thing. Matthew may have been extremely honest in what he was doing. Obviously, our Lord saw a need to call him and to use him in this earthly ministry and to be one of his apostles. So he says 2 words, follow me, and Matthew is the one who got up, arose, and followed him. Very simple, but very profound too. When you think about it, I mean, you start following Jesus around, you remember Jesus did not have, as he said, the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. There were times he didn't even have a place where to put his head down at night in regard to having a house. If you're going to follow him around, you have to think about all that is going to entail, and Matthew's willing to get up and do it. So a lot of commendation to Matthew on that end for being willing to arise and to follow him. All right, let's take a look over at Mark's account, rather. Mark chapter 2, verses 13 and 14.
And he went forth again by the seaside, and all the multitude resorted unto him, and he taught them. And he passed by, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the receipt of customs, and said unto him, Follow me, and he arose and followed him.
All right, thank you very much. You might say, wait a minute, Corey, that's not a parallel account, because that doesn't say Matthew, that says Levi. And at first you may think that you're right on that, but they are the same person. If you go in the Bible, sometimes you come across the word Cephas. You remember coming across Cephas? Sometimes you'll come across the word Simon. Other times you'll come across the word Peter. Sometimes it may be Simon Peter. They're all the same person. When you come across Levi here, don't let that just mess you up in your mind, because that is the same man known as Matthew. He's also known as Levi. But this is the account that Mark gives, that Jesus is going by the seaside. Multitude resorted unto him, came to him. He teaches them, which he did on a regular basis when he had opportunity to do such. But then as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus. We're given the father's name of Matthew here, or Levi, sitting at the receipt of custom. And just like with Matthew, and he said unto him, Follow me, and he arose and followed him. So when you come across Levi, it is the same man in the New Testament as Matthew. All right, Luke chapter 5, verses 27 through 28.
After this
All right, thank you very much. Verse 29 can go along with that. I think I gave through 28, but that's fine to read through 29 because Levi is mentioned in that. So that's no problem there. That's fine. You get a little bit more information there when you read Luke chapter 5, verse 29 that Matthew and Mark do not give, which, by the way, I just gave something away too. One of the books carries the name of Matthew. When we think about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, this is, as far as we know, this would be the Matthew who would have been the writer of that gospel account. So keep that in mind. He's also known as Levi, and this time Luke's version does refer to him as a publican, which is a tax collector. And again, the receipt of customs, still mentioned there as in Matthew and Mark. Same words, follow me, and he left all. Now notice that is a little, it didn't say quite to that degree in Matthew and Mark's account, but Luke gives us that reference, and he left all, rose up, and followed him. Now, friends, that's a pretty big undertaking. But when I say that to you, I hope that you understand that when we became Christians, we had a very big undertaking as well. And what I mean by that is we decided to give our lives over to Him. We were supposed to. That's what Matthew is doing here and Levi is doing here. He's giving his life over to following the Lord. He's leaving everything behind to follow after Him. And some people might say, well, Corey, I didn't have to give up all my physical possessions and everything. No, that's not what He requires of us. He requires us to present our bodies a living sacrifice. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. And we live the life that we now live, as Paul said, we are to live by the faith of the Son of God who lived or who died and gave Himself for us. Galatians 2:20. That's what we should be doing, is giving everything to Him in our regard to our lives. The main priority of my life today is I'm a Christian. I hope we understand that. That is our vocation. And when you think of vocation, what is a vocation? That's your job, right? Our vocation is we are children of God. We're Christians. And that has to be primary in our decision making and things that we do in our lives. I'm afraid that a lot of brethren sometimes don't put that emphasis where they need to. We are to seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, Matthew 6:33. It cannot be that, well, I'll look and see what the Bible says on it, and if it's convenient for me or I agree with it, then I'll do it. It's supposed to be we're willing to do it no matter what. And we're willing to do it as Levi or Matthew did here, to leave all if necessary. And if that's what it takes for us to stay faithful to Him, we should do it. We are to be faithful unto death, even if it costs us our lives. Revelation 2:10. So there's the calling of Matthew or Levi. So we have him now following after the Lord as Jesus is going about His earthly ministry. Now let's move forward a little bit. 1 year of time is going to pass between the second Passover and the third during Jesus' earthly ministry. Now remember, He was in His earthly ministry about how many years? About 3 years. So you're dealing with a situation here where 1 year of time would have passed between the second Passover and the third Passover during Jesus' earthly ministry. Which brings us to John chapter 5. I need a reader. This is a long segment too. Anyone? All right, Wayne, if you'll read for us John chapter 5. We have to read all this together because we're harmonizing the gospel accounts, and this is the account that we find of this and how long that it is to get all of it in there. It's John chapter 5, verses 1 through 47. It has to do with Jesus healing a man on the Sabbath day. And we're going to see a lot in this account in John chapter 5, beginning at verse 1.
After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a food, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then first, after the troubling of the water, stepped in, was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And a certain man was there, which had an infirmity for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lie, knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool, but while I am coming, another stepped down before me. Jesus said unto him, Rise, take up that bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, It is the Sabbath day. It is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. He answered them, He that made me whole, the same said unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. Then asked they him, What man is that which said unto thee, Take up thy bed and walk? And he that was healed wist not who it was, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, a multitude being in that place. Afterward Jesus findeth him in the temple, and saith unto him, Behold, thou art made whole, sin no more, lest the worst thing come to you. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus which had made him whole. And therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus, and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. But Jesus answered them, My Father worketh hitherto, and I work. Therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only had broken the Sabbath, but also said also that God was his Father, making himself equal with God. Then answered Jesus and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise. For the Father loveth the Son, and showeth him all things that he himself doeth. And he will show him greater works than these, that ye may marvel. For as the Father raises up the dead, and quickens them, even so the Son quickens whom he will. For the Father judgeth no man, but hath committed all judgment unto the Son, that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He that honoreth not the Son honoreth not the Father which hath sent him. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God. They that hear shall live. For as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself, and hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of man. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the grave shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. I can of mine own self do nothing as I hear. I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. There is another that beareth witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesseth of me is true. He sent unto John, and he bare witness unto the truth. But I receive not testimony from man. These things I say that you might be saved. He was a burning and a shining light, and you were willing for a season to rejoice in his light. But I have greater witnesses than that of John, for the works which the Father hath given me to finish, the same works that I do, bear witness of me that the Father has sent me. And the Father himself, which hath sent me, hath borne witness of me. Ye have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his shape. And ye have not his word abiding in you, for whom he hath sent, him ye believe not. Search the Scriptures, for in them ye think ye have eternal life. They that are they which testify of me. And ye will not come to me, that ye might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that ye have not the love of God in you. I am come in my Father's name, and ye receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. How can you believe, which receive honor one of another, and seek not the honor that cometh from God only? Do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one that accuses you, even Moses, in whom you trust. Well, had ye believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how should you believe my word?
All right, thank you very much. I know that was a very long reading, the entire chapter, but the whole account is, if you break it up into segments, you're going to do a disservice because all of that is one account of what happened. It's all one event there, or one time period, I guess I should say, with events there going on. And therefore, we cover all of it as we read it for the first time. But let's back up now and go back to the beginning of the chapter. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. That would have been the job of a Jewish person under those time periods. When the feast days were there, they should have gone to them. And Jesus, being a faithful Jew at that moment in time, does such. Now there is at Jerusalem, by the sheep market, a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. Now these pools, if you're not familiar with Palestine or Canaan or Jerusalem, Israel, whatever term you choose to use on that occasion, if you're not familiar with these pools they had different ones in the city at different locations. This was not a swimming pool. Sometimes we use the term pool today. I think that's what most folks will get in their mind, is something like a swimming pool. But there could be a usage of it for different things. On the day of Pentecost, after Jesus had resurrected, there were about 3,000 souls baptized on that day, right? A lot of those pools could have been utilized on that day. That could have been one of the times where they could have utilized those pools in helping to baptize individuals. But this particular pool, called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches, in these porches lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. All right, before we go any further, this would have been something that they had believed to be the case, that something could help them there to be healed. The next verse that you see in the King James Version, verse 4, if you will, Vincent, would you take a look at the American Standard Version for us? What do you have there for chapter 5 of John at verse 4? Do you have it?
Verse 4.
Yes, sir.
Mine don't even have 4.
There you go. That's right. I knew it wasn't supposed to. That's the reason I came to you. The reason that it's not there, there is no, as far as I understand it, there is no known Greek manuscript that contains verse 4 in it. And the King James translators had it put in there, but the other versions, a lot of them don't include it, because the Greek manuscripts did not have a copy of it. That's why the American Standard Version of 1901 did not include verse 4 in their translation, because that particular verse is not found in the Greek manuscripts, from what I understand that they used. So you won't find this verse in all of the records. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. That's not what you find in the Greek manuscripts. So just thought I'd throw that out there and let Brother Vincent verify that for us in the American Standard Version, that you won't find verse 4 in the Greek manuscripts. And the King James Version, unfortunately, does have it there. And that might cause some people some difficulty. But nonetheless, we do understand that these people had a desire and a mindset that if they were there at the pool, that there was this thing called the moving of the water. Something would be done that they would be healed. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I don't know if some way God had utilized this in the past and allowed for such, or whether or not this was just what they thought would happen. The case being that it could have been that this was just something that people believed that they could be healed by doing this. Are there people today who believe you can be healed by certain things today? Absolutely. So, I mean, you can convince some people and they can believe something even if it's not necessarily always true. But nonetheless, and a certain man, verse 5, was there, which had an infirmity 30 and 8 years. Now, I gave away my age a little while ago, that I'll be 44 in December, so I'm not far away from the age of how long this man had this infirmity. 38 years. That's a long time to suffer from something, isn't it? I've had several kidney stones, as a lot of you already know, and when I have them really badly and I can't seem to get them passed, I suffer with them quite a bit. They are uncomfortable, they are miserable, and I want them over as quick as I can. I cannot imagine having something like that for 38 years. That would have been something that I tell you what, that would be misery. Now, this man did not have kidney stones, from what I understand. But you look down here at verse 7, he was referred to as an impotent man. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But verse 6 says, when Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, wilt thou be made whole? Now, let's just be very honest. If you've suffered for 38 years, and you're sitting there on one of these porches, you're lying there on one of these porches, and you're there because you believe something had happened to heal you, so obviously you're wanting to be, would you want to be clean or made whole rather? Would you want that? Well, sure. Absolutely. These people are there for that purpose already anyway. But Jesus wants this man to come out and to acknowledge, wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool. Friends, there is no need to be put in the pool. You're in the, obviously he doesn't understand that. You're in the presence of God in the flesh. Wilt thou be made whole? Do you want to be made whole or not? Well, this man, this impotent man is not able to walk. It's basically saying that no man helps him get in there, so he's basically giving up the idea that he thinks he can be made whole. But while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. In other words, somebody always gets in front of me. Every time I try, somebody gets in front. I can't. So he's got the mindset, I want to be made whole, but he doesn't think he can because he can't get in the pool, but he doesn't need to get in the pool. Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And verse 9 talks about him taking up his bed. I get in my mind's eye a little funny there. This is not a man toting around a four-poster bed. So if you think that's what he's doing, is he's get a huge bed the way we think of it today and toting it around, no, that's not what no. This would have been more probably something similar to a bedroll or something along those lines, something like that they would carry with them very easily. And this is what he was probably having to carry there. So rise, take up thy bed, and walk. Now, before we go any further, we've already touched on miracles that Jesus has performed in the past. Cana of Galilee, when the water was made into oil, or the fruit of the vine, happened immediately, right? When Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law, it was immediate, right? All the different ones we've seen so far, every time there was a sense where you could see that it was not a convalescence period, it was not a time of trying to get rehabilitation, it happened immediately. Well, guess what you're going to find in verse 9? And immediately the man was made whole. Friends, there is no doubt what a true miracle was and what these individuals who claim to do today are doing and tricking people and convincing people otherwise. And immediately the man was made whole, and he took up his bed and walked. And then we find that's a little bit right here at the end of verse 9 that really makes a big part of the rest of the chapter important. And on the same day was the Sabbath. Now let's talk about the Sabbath day. When was the Sabbath day given to man? We are a little bit apprehensive here. What are you thinking? Okay. Law of Moses, Mount Sinai, 10 Commandments. Anybody else? In the beginning? That's where a lot of folks will go. And so I figured that might be the thought of some people. Because God rested on the seventh day after he had 6 days of creation, right? So a lot of folks think, well, that must be the Sabbath day. It was for God. Because the term Sabbath does not mean seventh. What does the word Sabbath mean? It literally means rest. So the seventh day was literally God's Sabbath, but that was not for man yet. That was God. Man didn't rest on that day. God did. Now, with that being the case, though, at Mount Sinai, as was told just a few moments ago, when the 10 Commandments were given, the Jewish people were told, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, right? That's the first time you'll find that being told to any group of people any time in Scripture, that they were to observe that. That was Israel's rest, and it was given to them in the law of Moses. There are some people who try to say that the Sabbath day it was started with God in the seventh day, but again, that's not man's Sabbath, and that's where people don't understand. That was where God rested. Man's rest was first given, if you want to look at it from that point of view, to Israel in the law of Moses, and they were to observe the Sabbath day. Now, yes, it just so happened, guess what? Israel's Sabbath or rest came on what day of the week? Seventh, but Sabbath does not mean seven. It just so happened that was the case. So when you come over to Israel being introduced to it, that was when it really is first given to mankind to observe as something they had to keep. Now, here's a question I have for you today. Do we observe the Sabbath today? Okay. We're taught over in the New Testament that we're not supposed to be judged, not man judge us of certain days, including the Sabbath, right? That tells us because that there's nothing for us to observe today. If someone wanted to accuse us of not keeping the Sabbath day today, they would be wrong to do such because we don't live under that law today. Now, there are some groups of people out there who believe you should still assemble and you should still worship, and it still should be the day that Christians observe today as the Sabbath. but that was part of the law of Moses. And that was for physical Israel back then. The law of Moses has been nailed to the cross, Colossians 2:14. It has been taken out of the way. That includes, yes, I know people don't like hearing it, but that includes the 10 Commandments. And that would include the Sabbath day. It's no longer to be observed. What day is the day that Christians are to assemble together to worship God in spirit and in truth? The first day of the week, not the seventh. What day was Jesus risen from the dead, by the way? So it's the Lord's day. The first day of the week. That's exactly right. So I wanted to make sure we covered a little bit of that. Now they're living in a time period here, and this is why it's important. Jesus is still living under the law of Moses, and so are these other Jews at this point in time. He has not died at this point in time. He has not been nailed to the cross. Neither has the law of Moses. So therefore, is the Sabbath day observance still something they should have been doing? Everybody do like this? Absolutely. Because the law of Moses is still in effect at this time. Now, here's the problem. The Jewish people had problems understanding the Sabbath day. The Jewish people had a lot of traditions, a whole bunch of them, that they held very, very dearly to themselves, sometimes even emphasizing those opinions and those traditions more than they emphasized the Word of God. The Sabbath day, unfortunately, became something that they should not have made it. By the way, just as a thing to throw out right now, if a Jew had an ox in the ditch on the Sabbath day, what did he do? You might think that, but that's actually, no, they literally would get it out they would do it. The reason I bring that up, and you might have thought that because it's a Sabbath day, that would be the thought. Some people would say, wait a minute, it's supposed to be rest, you're not supposed to do servile work, so if an ox is in the ditch, you just leave it there. But they would actually understand if an ox was in the ditch that it was okay to get that ox out of the ditch even though it was the Sabbath day. They had no problem with that because they could see the need for it, right? I have a question for you. When is it ever a bad thing for a man that is unable to walk to be made whole? Is there a certain day of the week that's not a good thing? No. I mean, no. If he could be made whole on any day of the week after suffering for 38 years, that would be wonderful, would it not? Same thing about the ox, right? The ox was a need. You get it out of the ditch because you don't want the ox to die and you don't want it to be injured, things like that. They saw the need for that, but they were so blinded by their ideas of what the Sabbath day was about that they thought that there was something wrong if a man who had been impotent for 38 years was made whole.
Corey,
Yes.
if the Sabbath day is holy, is the first day of the week holy?
Well, it's one of those situations, again, where the Bible talks about not judging a man of certain days. If you look at it as a certain day that's, quote, holy, then that would be something between the individual and God, I guess. But in regard to the term holy and being pure, I think back to what the Old Testament says, this is the day that the Lord hath made. Every day to a degree is the Lord's, but not specifically the Lord's day when we look at it from that point of view. I don't look at it as being a day necessarily that is, well, how can I put this? It's obviously special in the sense that we worship on it on the first day of the week.
The reason I'm saying this is we got a song in our songbook that says, on this holy day.
Yes, sir. And I don't know that I would say that there's anything that we ought to have a major issue with that being the case, but I also wouldn't say that it's any more of an important day than some others in some ways as well. It's just a day. But now for us it's special, yes, because it's a very special occasion for us to assemble together and to be able to worship God on the first day of the week. But I would be cautious in binding certain things for certain people.
I've never seen anything in the New Testament that says the first day of the week is holy day.
Well, you don't find it that way. And it's not worded in explicitly that way. You don't. Now, the Sabbath day, they were to remember it to keep it holy. Yes, that was under the old law. You're right. That was the way it was worded. But we don't find that, as you are correct in saying, in regard to the first day of the week in the New Testament. But again, is it a great day? Yes. Is it a special day for Christians in a way? Yes, that we get to assemble together. Is it special in the sense that that's the day Jesus rose from the dead? Yes, it's the Lord's day in that sense. But legitimately, specifically, as you're stating it, we don't find it that way, being mentioned to be holy in the New Testament. All right? How many of you or this man would have welcomed being healed on any day you could possibly get it? Now, he's there because he believed he could get in the pool, he might be able to be healed, right? So he's already wanting it on the Sabbath day anyway. And that's amazing, too. You don't see them having a problem with all these people coming to this pool and doing this. You never find any reference about any issue being done there. But when Jesus tells this man to rise and take up thy bed and walk,
Was there a Pharisee patrol somewhere?
A Pharisee patrol. Well, I don't know in so many terms, no, but I understand what you're saying. There were some nitpickers out there back then, I'm sure. There are a lot of nitpickers today sometimes. Unfortunately, that still rears its head. But it amazes me that these individuals had no problem apparently saying anything to these other folks. At least we don't have any record of it. But this man, who they know, by the way, they knew this man. They knew that he'd had this issue for 38 years. They've seen him. They've been around him. They know the situation. So when you come down to verse 9, and he's healed, takes up his bed and walks, then verse 10 says, the Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, it is the Sabbath day. Yeah, and? I mean, honestly, I don't want to be ugly about it, but yeah. I don't see the problem here. It is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. But you can go get an ox out of the ditch and everything's fine. You think more of an animal that has no immortal soul the way that a human being has. You care more about that animal than you do a human being.
That's happening today.
Oh, yes, it is. There are a lot of folks who try to place emphasis on that today. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against animals. I like animals. I got 3 cats in my house. I found out this morning again, you cannot have a wardrobe in our house that doesn't carry cat hair. Everywhere we go, we carry them with us to a degree. But I mean, I like animals. I like dogs. I like cats. I like animals. But they're not on the same level as a human being in the sight of God. And people today, and I'll run this rabbit for just a minute. The people today who emphasize animals' lives to the same degree that we do a human life is absolutely wrong. Those people who claim that when you kill an animal today for meat and things of that nature, that it's murder is absolutely wrong. You go back and you read in the beginning, man was to have dominion over the animals. Didn't say we were equal to them. We were to have dominion over them. They are there for our purpose and for our utilization. By the way, if God allows for it to be done, how could it be murder? Murder is a sin. Just thought I'd throw it out there, right? Couldn't be right. All right, here we go. Go ahead, brother.
Usually, too, those that affirm for the animals and the life of the animals before abortion.
And that's what's sad, isn't it?
So you wonder.
Brother Jerry brings up a very interesting point that sometimes the ones who will advocate for the animals' lives will then turn around and say they support abortion. And that's a head scratcher right there.
I need to read Ecclesiastes 3:21.
You want to read it for us?
Well, I got it marked here, so who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast goeth downward to the earth.
There you go. It's not the same as in regard to a human being. It wasn't supposed to be. That's not the way God intended it to be.
Well, the point here is that you're talking, Jesus is trying to teach them logics also, how things really logically are that God put in motion about that. Now, what he was saying about the animal rights thing, it's not logical.
No, it's not.
And I talked to them about it because why would you want to be for spay, neuter, everything, and there'd be nothing?
That's about right.
I'm saying
That's
it's
true.
not logical.
That is true. If you had no offspring at all, the animals would cease, human beings would cease, it would stop. Now, I haven't thrown this out there yet, but let me throw it out there now. Did Jesus know it was the Sabbath day? Don't forget that, friends. Our Lord knew exactly what day it was. He knew exactly what day it was. He took an opportunity to make an emphasis about the Sabbath day. He wanted them to learn they had it wrong. He could have said, you know what, if the Sabbath day means, if it's the Sabbath day and I can't heal you, we'll wait till tomorrow and I'll heal you then. He could have done that. Easily. He knew the problem these Jews had with this day. That they were not doing what God wanted to have done. Question for you. Name me one day of the week that it is ever wrong to do that which is good. They missed it. They thought they got it, but they missed it. It was supposed to be a day of rest, yes, and no servile work was to be done because you're showing your dependency upon God and your trust in Him and your faith in Him. But friends, it was never wrong to do good on it. Never. If it was good to save an animal's life, is it not more than the animal's life to save a man's, to make him whole? Now you see why I asked you the way I did? Because Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. And he knew exactly what these people were going to do and how they were going to react, and he didn't get caught off guard. He was ready for them. It is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. He answered them, He that made me whole, the same said unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. Now I have a question for you. If a true miracle was performed, a true miracle, I ain't talking about some of this nonsense that happens today. A true miracle was performed, and the one that said to you, Rise up and take up thy bed and walk, would you do it? I think I'd be listening to someone who could perform a real miracle. And this was legit. Then asked they him, What man is that which said unto thee, Take up thy bed and walk? They want to have a word with Mr. Jesus. They want to talk to him about this matter. They want to educate him on what the Sabbath day is and what it's all about. How about flipping that the other way around? Mr. Jesus wants to educate them about what the Sabbath day is really all about. And he that was healed wist not or knew not who it was. He didn't realize who it was when this happened, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, a multitude being in that place. Afterward, Jesus findeth him in the temple and said unto him, Now wait a minute, why did Jesus go find this man in the temple? Friends, he's not taken aback by any of this. He's not caught off guard by any of this. He knows exactly what he's doing. Does he already know before he even goes and talked to this man that these other Jews have already questioned this and made an issue of it? Yes. He already knows all of that. So Jesus goes to the man and says, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come unto thee. Now wait a minute. Does that mean that every impairment man has, that every sickness man has, every ailment man has is because somebody sinned? No. No. There was a belief amongst some Jewish people, though. You remember there was another man that was healed and his parents didn't want to answer for him. They said he is of age, basically let him answer for himself, because they actually thought that he had sinned or somebody else did for that man to have that disease. No. Or have that ailment. No. But is there sometimes we can do certain things that can cause certain disabilities and ailments because of actions we do? Absolutely it can be. And some of them sinful? You better believe it. The drunkard who drank for 30 years and has cirrhosis of the liver, does he have a reason why he has that ailment? Just being honest. Yes. The promiscuous person who goes out and commits fornication and contracts HIV, did they do something to contribute to that? Yes. But not every ailment is that way. There are some people who are born with ailments and there was absolutely nothing wrong with them in regard to sin. And we shouldn't look at that as a punishment. But nonetheless, Jesus does tell this man that he's made whole, and yes, he's to sin no more, lest the worst thing come unto thee. He could go into some sins that could cause things to be worse and worse. By the way, had Jesus also given on occasion the forgiveness of sins? We've already studied that, haven't we? You remember he told him, Man, thy sins be forgiven. And they had a fit about that too, didn't they? Jesus has the power to make spiritually and physically whole, friends. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus which had made him whole. Jesus introduced himself to him. They want to know who did it. Jesus goes right up and finds the man in the temple and talks to him. And guess what? As soon as he's done, that man goes and tells the Jews. Think Jesus knew what he was doing? And therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. And friends, my time is exhausted. And that's a good place to stop. We'll pick up there next time at verse 16 again. Any questions or comments on anything we studied today?